Hey there folks, today I'm going to break down the Risen framework for people who want to improve their prompts for ChatGPT. The R in Risen stands for role. Describe the person you'd like to write for you. A witty copywriter, an SEO guru, or a comedian like Bill Burr. You want to pick the right person for the right job. I is for instructions. Tell Chat what you want, a blog post, a product review, or a YouTube description. If you want to reference an outside source or sources, here's where I dropped a link. S is for steps. Start with a strong, attention-grabbing opening paragraph, followed with 3 main points that include 2 to 3 examples for each point, and finish with a conclusion that has a call to action and ends with a question. Personally, I reserve the steps part for larger content like blogs, articles, or a strongly worded letter to a neighbor. E is for end goal. Tell Chat what you would like the result to be. I would like the script to resonate with people who would like to get better at writing prompts for ChatGPT. N is for narrowing. Whether it's a word count, number of paragraphs, or an amount of time, give Chat some guide rails to work its magic within. And if you love a prompt or just like it, then keep it. It's a good idea to build yourself a prompt library. And before I go, I'd like to give you an example of a prompt. In the style of Ryan Reynolds, can you write a brief script about the Risen framework with 3 examples for role, instructions, steps, end goal, and narrowing? I would like the script to resonate with people who would like to get better at writing prompts for ChatGPT. Please keep this between 100 and 200 words. That will give you your first pass. And to be honest, the first pass that this prompt gave me was largely not for me, but I find it easier to fix than generate sometimes. And remember, AI isn't perfect. You still have to work with it. So that's the Risen framework. I hope it helps and makes you rethink your prompts and how you interface with LLMs. I got the Risen framework from Kyle Balmer on TikTok. His handle is I am Kyle Balmer, and I think he's great. Check him out if you want to learn more about AI.